join us as we make this super sweet granny square project bag. All you need is 4 granny squares, and we're also making these awesome cord handles that don't stretch no matter how much you put inside. To make the granny square sides for our project bag, you'll need to make 5 granny squares, of which I have made 3 so far, of whatever colors you want. You can change your color every round or do it all one color and just join in another color, whatever you want to do. So I have picked a variety of yarns here, so let's get started. If you know how to make your granny squares, I'll just give you the Cole's Note version of why this is different. I'm using 2 strands of yarn at a time, so it's thick and it's firm, so I think it'll stand up pretty well. And I'm also not chaining one in the side areas, just so it's closer together. I don't want holes or bigger holes on the side of my bag. So I'll put a timer in the description box below of where we start doing the joining if you do not need to see how to do these. I am using a 5.5mm hook. And to use your 2 strands of yarn, you can go from the inside and the outside of one ball, if that gives you enough yarn. When you're doing the bigger rounds, you're going to want to use 2 balls, or else this won't be enough to go around. Such has been my experience with yarn chicken. So to begin your basic granny square, we're going to start with a magic ring. To make your magic ring, you can put the tail over your hand and hold it down on your ring finger with your thumb. Wrap your yarn around 2 fingers, making an X, and then around your 3 fingers, and just hold it with that thumb. Turn your hand over so you have a short strand and a long strand. Take your hook, put it down underneath the short strand, hook side down, and grab the long strand and drag it back through. Point the hook towards yourself, point the hook away from yourself, and now you're starting to loosen with your thumb, and grab the long strand, loosen a lot so that that yarn comes up. Turn your hook and bring it through that loop on your hook. And there is your magic ring. So untangle your tail and chain 3. 1, 2, and 3. So that's going to count as your first double crochet. Make 2 more double crochets into that ring, taking care to go over your tail, 1 and 2. So that's your one side of your granny square. Get my yarn ready. If you're not sure how to do a double crochet, I'll show you. To do your corners, you're going to chain 3. 1, 2, and 3. And now going back into this ring, you're going to make 3 double crochets. So wrap your yarn, go into the ring, grab your yarn and bring it back, wrap your yarn and take off 2, wrap your yarn and take off 2. So keep doing that. You need sets of 3. 1, there's our number 2, and here's our number 3. Good. So there's 2 sides of our square. And chain 3 for your corner. 1, 2, and 3. And 1 more side. So we need 4 sides for a square. So sets of 3 double crochets. This is number 2. Number 3. Chain 3 for your corner. 1, 2, and 3. And our last side of 3 double crochets. 1, 2, and 3. Now we can pull our tail, and that will shrink up our ring and close the hole. In the middle there. So pull it as tight as you can without breaking your yarn. So go into this top of the chain 3 and you're going to do a single crochet. So bring the yarn back, wrap your yarn, and take off 2. Now you can wiggle open and you can see you have 3 double crochets on that side and 3 double crochets on the other side. So your corner is right there. So I'm holding that open with my thumb and finger, and I'm going to chain 3. 1, 2, and 3. Turn your work and 2 double crochets into that same space. So why we turn our work is if you're doing larger granny squares and you don't turn your work, it starts going on a bit of an angle, like your square looks a bit twisted in the middle, like off center, slowly. So this way, if you go back and forth, your square stays true. So now to get to the next space, we are just going to go straight over and do a corner. Corners are 3 double crochets, 1, 2, and 3. A chain 3 for your corner, 1, 2, and 3, and 3 more double crochets into that corner. So into your corner spaces, you're doing 6 double crochets in total with a chain 3 in between the sets. So there's our 6th one into that corner. So you can see that we did that corner there. You can also put a stitch marker, thankfully I have one, in this first space where we did our chain. That's good for when you're starting out because you might not recognize that half corner there. So this is where that's where we did our chain 3 and our 2 double crochets. So just into that space we put a stitch marker. So when you come back around, you don't just carry on and then wonder why you don't have a square. That's really handy when you're starting out. So into the next corner, 3 double crochets, and a chain 3, 1, 2, and 3, and 3 more double crochets, 1, 2, and 3. Right? So we've done 2 corners now, a corner here and a corner there. Our last full corner is here, so 3 double crochets. Chain 3, 1, 2, and 3, and 3 more double crochets into the very same space. 1, 2, and 3. Now this is where our stitch marker is. So this is where we started. We did 1 shell into this corner space. So we can remove our stitch marker because we know that we got to join into there. So we're going to go in there straight, making a shell because we only did half of the corner. So we're going to do 3 double crochets, 1, 2, and 3. Like that. And now, because I'm going to fasten off my yarn, we're just going to do a regular chain 3, 1, 2, and 3, and slip stitch to the top of that chain 3 to join. Just push your hook in, grab your yarn and bring it back, and through that loop on your hook. Now I'm going to chain 1 and cut my yarn, pull my hook up and my yarn out, and snug this down to secure. Now before I carry on, I'm going to work in this end. I'm going to go back along this chain, going into the back loops only, and just drag this yarn through each of those 3 chain stitches. 1, 2, 3. So you can do that much, or you can go all the way across another 4 stitches and end up on the far side of this join. So you'll have 9 double crochets holding in your tail, It's up to you. It depends also like what you're doing, like how often your bag is going to get washed and beaten up. All right, there. So now when we are, and we'll just, yeah, there we go. So now when we're going around that, that is going to pin that in, and we can just cut our tail. So there's our 2 rows of granny square. I'm going to change my yarn to my next color, of which I have enough. I just have these 2 small bits left, so I hope that's enough to go around. 1 more round of yarn chicken beginning now. So to join your new yarn, I don't want to join here because I just joined, and I also want to flip my work. So I'm going to flip it over and join somewhere else, a different corner. So I'm going to leave a little bit of a longer tail and bring it through and slip stitch with all 4 strands to join. And then I'm going to slip stitch or do my two more chains. Chain 1, oh gosh, that's tight. 1, and try to get this up to the top. Then we don't have to sew this one in at all either. It's a bit bulky, but we're going for bulk for this bag, so I don't mind. Okay. So there's our chain 3. Now into the same space, I'm doing 2 more double crochets. So 1 and 2. We can put our stitch marker back in that corner spot, although this round is easier to see because we have the different color yarn. So now we're going to go straight and make our next shell straight in the center of that side. So no chaining, you're just going to go straight in and make 3 double crochets. 1, 2, and 3. And straight into the corner. For 3 double crochets, a chain 3, 1, 2, and 3, and 3 more double crochets into that corner space. Like so. 3 double crochets into that center because it's on the side, so side spaces just get a shell of 3 double crochets. The bigger you make your granny square, the more sides you'll have. That's the only difference. So sides are 1 set of 3 and corners are 3 double crochet, chain 3, and 3 double crochet. So just keep going around. I'll meet you at the join. At the join, or at that corner, our first corner where we joined, make 3 double crochets into that same space so that you started in. 1, 2, and 3. And now because we're going to continue with our color, I'm going to chain 1 and I'm going to make a single crochet into the top of this chain to join. So just push your hook in, grab your yarn and bring it back, wrap your yarn and take off 2 loops. Chain 3 to get your height for the next row, 2 and 3, and turn your work. Now you want to check to make sure that you have your 3 double crochets on each side of your chain, and then make 2 double crochets into that same space. So that counts as our half of our corner. So I'll put in the stitch marker so we can see it when we come back around, and work along the sides. So now on this round we have 2 sides, 2 spaces on the side that need shells. So there's our first one, 3 double crochets, and then straight into the second one, 3 double crochets. and then the next one's a corner. So into the corner, 3 double crochets, chain 3, 3 double crochets, and 1 set of 3 double crochets into each space along the side. So keep going around like that, and I'll meet you when we get back to the stitch marker. Back at this corner, we can take out our stitch marker and do our last shell of 3 double crochets into that corner space. 1, 2, and 3. And now, because I'm finishing off, I've done my 2 rows, I'm going to do a chain 2 or chain 3, 1, 2, and 3, and slip stitch to join. So slip stitch, and then chain 1 to knot your work. So that makes a little knot, which is our friend. And then cut your yarn, and I made it. Yarn chicken, woo! Pull your hook up and your yarn out, and pull that down to secure. Now, we're going to weave in this end as well before we do anything else. So same thing, into your back loops. Hard to see on this yarn, but just poke your hook in to the chain and weave this tail in to whatever you think the back loop of every stitch looks like. We're going to be going over it with the next round, so it totally doesn't matter, but it's always good to have it nice and secure. So there's that one. We can cut that one off later, and we've gone around this one when we wove it into this corner and then along this side. So this one we can just trim off. So that's good. This magic ring, this one we're going to have to take a needle and weave that one in backwards a little bit, back and forth, so that that's secure. But I don't have my needle handy, go figure, so I'll do that off camera. So now keep on alternating your colors, or however you're going to do it, every row or never, or however you're doing it. Build your block as big as you'd like for the side of your bag. So one is going to be the base of your bag, the very bottom, and then you'll have ones for the sides, 1, 2, 3, and 4. So you need 5 squares altogether. When you have your 5 squares, meet me back and we will start the joining and then the handles. Yay! Ready to join our 5 squares. So pick the order of your squares that you want and lay them down with the pretty side facing down. It doesn't totally matter, but I'm choosing the side that I finished my row on. So my V stitches are facing me. I'm going to say that that is my pretty side, even though they're the same, just so the waves of up and down will match on all sides of the square. So you want to put 2 squares together, pretty sides facing out. So I'm going to flip this one so pretty side is facing down, and then get my next one pretty side facing up, and we're going to go along this edge. So with our squares, we're making one big long row. These are going to be the sides of our bag. So we're going to join 4 squares along one side to make, it's going to end up being like a box with or a tube really, and we'll put the bottom on last. So get your yarn ready, whatever you're going to use for joining. Because I'm using 2 plies and I can't decide on my colors, I'm going to be using this yarn here and this one here and this one there. So it'll be a mix going around for the join. So to join your yarn, let me zoom in. And let me actually work from this side. It's probably easier for you to see because of the color. There we go. So same, I've gone over my tail here, like I've woven it in. I'll just weave it in a bit more. There we are. Because now for this round, we're going into the stitches, not the spaces. So I am going to put my hook into the center of this chain, so into the chain, not the space. And same into the bottom chain. I'm just going to put it into the chain so it's hooked in that chain. Put a loop of your yarn on your hook, bring it through those stitches, and slip stitch with both to join. Now I'm going to drop my tails. We're just going to work along them old-fashioned style. So now into this, my kids, Saturday morning here, so they are happy to be home. Going to the trampoline, I imagine. Okay, so into this corner space, we're going to make 2 single crochets. And we're going over our tails. I'm just holding them on the top. So 1 and 2. Oh, good. So there's our 2 single crochets. Now into each stitch going along. So we did not do any chaining in between. If you did chaining, you're also going to put a single crochet into that chain space. You're going to match the number of stitches you made on your square to the number of stitches you're doing to join. But we did not chain anything along the sides. So we are just doing single crochet. So here's our single crochets here. 1, 2, and 3. So don't forget, you have to get into this first one. So single crochet, and we're going into both of the squares, the top one, that guy, and there's my tails, the bottom guy there. So we're going through all of that for every stitch of all of the joining. So you're going to end up having 4 loops on your hook, 4 parts of the V, unless of course you did the 2 strands like me. Then you'll have even more. So work your way along, single crochet. It gets easier once you don't have to work in your tails or go over your tails. So just wiggle your hook in. You can feel if it's going through all of them, but if you are not that experienced, just keep flipping it over and seeing to make sure you've gone into that side as well. So keep going all the way along. 1 single crochet into each stitch that you made of your square, and I'll meet you at the end of this row. So I've finished my 3 double crochets for those, my last 3 stitches. Good thing about using a different color, you can see where you've been. Now into this corner, I'm going to go into the corner space and make 2 double crochets. 1 and 2, just like that. You can see how that is. And now I'm just going to chain 1 to secure my work, because we're going to have to cut that yarn. Where's my scissors? Cut my yarn and pull up your hook and your loop. Those guys. There's our 2 squares joined, and it has the single crochet on the outside. That's going to help our tote turn into like a box shape. It'll help it be crisp along the edge. So now for your next piece, flip this over so your single crochet is facing down again, like that. And we're going to line up our next square along this edge. So let me get my next square. So there's our square. We're making a tube, not a tube. Well, we're making a tube eventually, but right now we're making a stripe. So we're just joining on one side, making it longer, longer, longer for 4 squares. So onto this square, you're doing it the same way. Make sure that your single crochet part, the part that sticks out, is facing down. Yes. So line up your pretty sides again. So your pretty side I'm seeing is the one where your V's are facing you. So you're going to have the V's facing you in your last row facing up. And we're just going to put this along the top. Like that. I'm keeping my ends all on one side. That's where we're going to join the bottom, and we can work in our tails, all these ends at the one side. You don't have to, it's just me being particularly retentive. So now, let me flip it again so it's easier for you to see. No, let me not. So you're going to do it the same way as we joined the first two. Put your hook into this chain somewhere, into the second chain somewhere, and bring up a loop of your joining yarn, whatever you're using for joining. Bring it through, single crochet or slip stitch with all those strands to join, and drop your tails. We'll work over them. Now into your corner space, 2 single crochet just into that space to start our edge, and then work all the way along, same as we did before. Into the last corner spot, you're going to make your 2 single crochets, chain 1, and fasten off. So I will keep going. Remember how to do your stitches. Each one of these previous double crochets needs a single crochet for this round. So in the beginning, you kind of have to look for that first one. It can be hiding underneath those single crochets in the corner. So just make sure you have your right count. That'll keep your edges straight. And just make sure you go into both stitches. So I will see you at the end of this round, and then I will leave you to join your next one until you have a nice rectangle. And we'll do the next one together. So I've got to the last stitch into the corner, 2 single crochets, 1 and 2, chain 1, cut your yarn, pull your hook up and your loop out, and snug that down to secure. So we'll go over that later also. When you have all 4 joined into a stripe like that, fold it in half so your pretty side is facing up and your pretty side is facing down with those single crochets. This is our last edge to do, so we're going to be making a tube. So the same way we did our other seams, you're going to do that on this edge. So you're going to end up with a circle, basically a tube. So do that on this side, and I'll meet you back for doing the bottom. I have it joined all the way now, so all 4 squares are joined in a tube. And I'm going to put the bottom on. So I'm going to pick the side, or the side of this tube that has all my tails hanging from it to be the bottom. So I'm going to work over these tails. Not totally important to pick whatever side you want, but if you have a side with more tails than the other side, definitely just attach onto that side. So this is going to be my bottom. And I have all my ends to work in. Do that first. So what you're going to do, let me zoom out as best I can. You'll open up your tube like a box, like that. Then you're going to put stitch markers from this corner of your bottom to one of these corners here. It doesn't matter. Doesn't matter which one you're going to pick. I hope I have stitch markers. Oh, I do. Three. You need 4 stitch markers. Okay, so, oh gosh, my children. Into this side, you put 1 stitch marker, and into the other corner here, put a stitch marker, just to pin them together, just to keep it from flopping around when you're working. It's not the end of the world. You could also use just yarn and just tie it together in these corners. That is my almost 5-year-old crying. And he stayed up late last night with his big brother. So today, he doesn't like to hear the word no. Okay, oops, that pulled out. Darn. So into this corner, we're going to put one. There we go. And this one here, this one popped out. Okay. So we have our top of or it's a bottom, but we're putting it on like a lid. So it's like an empty box with a lid. So that's connected with those stitch markers. And now we can flip it down. I guess I should flip it this way down. I tell you. So now we're just going to be working along one side. Same as our joining, nothing different. So just think of it as doing 4 sides and do it the same way. Put your hook into this corner of this square and the corner of the bottom square. Just put your hook in. We're going to work over our tails, so you can just lay them along the top of your work, same as usual, and put a loop of yarn on your hook. I'm using 3 strands, so it's a lot of loops on my hook. And slip stitch with both strands of yours to join, or all strands, depending how many you're doing. So you did your slip stitch. Now into that corner space, going through both of the corners, do 2 double crochets. So this is exactly the same as we did joining our sides. Nothing different. And the last one. So there we did our join and our 2 single crochets into that corner space. Now work your way along in the same way as you did the sides. You might have to push those stitches back to get at that first stitch. First to the front, first to the back, good. And single crochet. The first ones of the row are always a bit trickier till you find your strategy. And working over those tails so they disappear. When you get to these spaces between the clusters, just make sure that they line up. So the top one lines up with the bottom one. Then you know you're on track. The 3 in between don't have to be exact if you're using yarn like this that you can't really see. Just make sure you're going through both squares and that the spaces between the shells line up. So keep going like this. I'll meet you at our first corner. So we've gotten to our corner space, 3 single crochets into those 3 double crochets. So take out your stitch marker and into this corner space, making sure you're going into both of the corner spaces of your top and bottom square, make 2 single crochets, 1 and 2. There we are. Now turn your bag so you have the next row ready to be worked into. Line them up so they're behaving. Get your new tails ready to get worked in. And into this next corner space. So the same corner space of the bottom and the new corner space of the side. It's your new side. Your tail behaving. And you want to have good tension here. So don't have a big loop on your hook. Like, make sure your loop is small. Make sure you're pinching everything. Make sure you have tension here because you want it to be a tight join. You don't want it to be a spacious join. So no wrapping the yarn. So go into that corner space of both the bottom and your new side. Bring your yarn back, keeping your tension strong, and single crochet as tight as you can. So that's pretty firm. And 1 more time. So 2 single crochets, 2 tight single crochets into that corner space. So there's that join. Now we just work along 3 double crochets. So the first one's hiding again, so wiggle your way into that first stitch, single crochet, and single crochet into each stitch going across. So that's it. That's how you do your corners. That's how you do your sides. I'll meet you at the next corner to show you that one again, so you don't have to back it up. I know corners can be stressful. And then you're on your own to finish joining the bottom. So keep going along this side, 1 single crochet into each stitch. Make sure your shells line up at the space between them, and I'll see you at the end of this row. Corner space, take out your stitch marker, wiggle your finger in there from the underside so you can feel that corner, and make your 2 double crochets. 1, 2. You want to keep firm tension for these corner single crochets. Did I say double? Oh, good gosh. So do your 2 single crochets nice and tight, and then turn or rotate your bag again. So this next side is ready to be joined. We'll go over our tails, and then get that bottom corner again. Get your finger in there, and get your finger up so you know where that corner is. And going straight over with firm tension, 2 single crochets, 1 and 2. So you're pulling quite hard, you're being quite firm, quite tight. Those ones, you want them to be crispy. And now keep going all the way along. So that's how you finish your bag. We've done 2 sides so far. This is the bottom, and that's our edge. So keep going all the way around. Do your next corner, 2 double crochet, 2 double crochet, and all along this side. And I will meet you at this stitch marker when we're going to join. So into this last corner space, we're going to do 2 firm single crochets. 1 and 2, keeping good tension. You don't want them to be loose. Now we're going to slip stitch to join. So where we're going to slip stitch is just into that top of the first single crochet. So how to do it if it's hard to get into is use your hook like a fishing rod to get that first loop open, and then wiggle it through. And slip stitch and chain 1 to secure your work. Take your scissors and cut your yarn. Pull your hook up and your yarn out, and pull that knot down to secure. So this tail you're going to weave in with your needle. The bottom of your bag is completely joined. So cute. So when you look inside, you have a bit of a box. Floppy box, but it's a box. So that is super cool. And on the outside, you have your nice edging, your single crochet edge. Next, we're going to be doing a row of single crochet, same as this join, all along the top. I will join in the same corner, same side join as I did for my bottom. Just so that where I'm weaving in my ends, there's one side that is woven in and the rest are perfect. To join your yarn, I'm just going to put my hook into this space. put a loop of my yarn selection on my hook, bring it back and slip stitch with all 3 to join. I'm going to drop my tails because we're doing single crochet. I can work them over, and I'm going to chain 1 just to get a little bit of height on the top. Now into that same corner space, 1 more single crochet, and then same as our join but easier because we're just going around, 1 single crochet into each stitch, going over your tails, easy peasy. Into this corner space, 2 single crochets, flip your, well not flip, but rotate your bag a little bit so you can move into the next side. Now into this, keeping your tension, you want your stitches to be nice and tight. Into this side, 2 single crochets, 1 and 2. Now you continue doing 1 single crochet into each stitch. Do your corners the same way, 2 double crochet, 2 double crochet, nothing in between, and I'll meet you back at the join. Into the corner space, 2 tight single crochets, 1, 2, and we're going to slip stitch to this first single crochet over there to join. So get your hook in any which way you can because we did those ones tight. There we are. Make sure you're keeping your tension. Okay, so there's our slip stitch, and we're going to chain 1, we can cut this one. I wove that one in, so that's from over here, woven back and gone over. Now into every stitch we're going to be making a single crochet. So now it's a bit easy, we don't have any corners to deal with. Go around doing your rows of single crochet, 1 into every stitch, and I will meet you back. Just a quick note about the second row. I have found when going over this seam area, what looks best is to do a decrease into these 2 stitches, the last one on this side and the first one on that side. If you do a decrease there, it looks a lot better. So start your first single crochet, don't finish it. Start your second single crochet into the next stitch, and then finish both stitches together. So you wrapping your yarn and you take off all 3. So that ends those 2 stitches into 1 stitch. From there you just do regular single crochet into each stitch like so. Oops, lost a strand. But that makes that nice and tight in there. I don't know if you can totally see it, but it's a lot straighter than, I can show you actually, than this side where I did not do a decrease. You can see how it's kind of, even when you straighten it, it's a bit whooped there. It's very small, like I'm not going to frog it, but it looks a lot better like this. So I did a decrease here, and you can see that one is a lot straighter. Even that's not straight on that side, but anyway, decrease the 2 stitches on the sides of our join. That really helps out. Other than that, keep going, same as usual, and I will meet you at the join. Here I am at my join, at that last seam I have. So because we're doing the decreases now, these 2 stitches on each side, I'm going to decrease. So start the single crochet on this side of the seam, and start a single crochet on the other side of the seam and wrap your yarn and take off all 3 strands together. Now I'm going to slip stitch to join like that, and I'm going to chain 1. So I'm going to cut off these 2 extra chunky ones, those guys, and I'm just going to be using this variegated alpaca blend, but I want to use 2 strands of it. And then I'm going to find the inside of the ball somewhere. Oh, there it is, lucky. So I'm going to add this strand. So I'm going to end up using 2 strands of this, the strand that's attached and the end of the same ball for going around. That's probably confusing. These 2 tails of the yarn that I cut, I'm going to pull through this loop. So those ones are knotted. I'll sew those in later, or maybe I'll even work over them right now. I'm going to wrap the old yarn, grab the new yarn, and pull both through. And chain 1 to secure, drop your tail. So now I have 2 strands of that yarn on my hook, and 1 single crochet into each stitch. I will meet you at the join. Where I managed to change the color is over here. So this is my first single crochet with both strands of that variegated yarn. So that is where I'm going to slip stitch to. So I'm just going to work my way over as usual. And get into that one. Tightly again, because we're doing a join, so we don't want it to be loose. So that's my last, oopsies, pick that up. That is my last single crochet. Lordy. And I'm going to slip stitch to this first one. My first real single crochet. So slip stitch, slip stitch. Now I'm finished with this color of yarn, so I am going to chain 1, cut my yarn, pull my hook up and my yarn out, and pull down to secure. To do round 4 of your edge, or my edge, I've done the whole bag with a 6mm. So for this last edge, because I don't want, it's the top of the bag, to reduce the stretching of it, I'm going to go down to a size 5. So 5mm. So I'm just going to attach my yarn, put a loop on my hook, bring it back, and slip stitch with all strands to join. And I'm going to drop my tail because we're going to work over it. Into the same stitch, I'm making a single crochet, just so I have a good place to slip stitch to when I get back over there. And 1 single crochet into each stitch, going all the way along. Nothing fancy, nothing new, smaller hook just to cinch it in a bit. And I'll see you for the join. So slip stitch to that first real single crochet to join. Just slip stitch. And now using your regular hook, so I'm going back to my regular hook. So this row of single crochet we did tighter. Now I'm going in with my regular hook. I'm just going to do 1 round of single crochet, 1 round of slip stitching into the previous round of single crochet using my 6mm hook, just so my bag doesn't cinch in, like it doesn't get puckered at the top, and it also won't stretch out in the future. The slip stitch stops it from stretching, and probably the top of the bag is where it's going to stretch. So all the way around, 1 row of slip stitch to finish the body of our bag. You can also see, well, I don't know if you can see actually, but it gives a nice thickness to the top edge opposed to, where can I show you? Well, that thick or that thick. So it feels better at the top. I guess it's more of a feeling than a look, but it feels nice. So keep going around, one slip stitch into each stitch, and I'll meet you back at the join. Other thing you can do, actually, while you're here, put a stitch marker into that first slip stitch area, so you know when you're coming around, you're going to be joining around here. I think that's our first slip stitch. So you don't want to keep whipping along and not notice that you've already slip stitched there. So I'll meet you back when you get to your stitch marker. When you're doing your slip stitch, you want to do a relaxed slip stitch. So you're bringing it through, and then don't just go straight. Like, make sure you have a bit of space on your hook to get enough distance to get over to the next spot. If you end up just, you know, doing it tightly, it'll pucker up the top of your bag, which you don't want. You want a square to be a square. So slip stitch, but then loosen your hook a bit after. Like, make sure it's not tight. It's still the same size as your hook, but it's not pinched right where you left it after the slip stitch. So just kind of do it in a relaxed style. Last slip stitch. And I'll take out my stitch marker and I'll slip stitch over there. So slip stitch. Now I'm slip stitching tightly for this one because it's our join. So dragging that through, and I'm going to chain one to secure. If you want to do an invisible join, of course, or however you want to do it at the top, that's fine. I am just doing regular. So cut your yarn, pull your hook up and your yarn through, and pull that knot down to secure. So now we have that end to weave in with our needle. So you can see the top of this side, it's firm, like I can't really stretch it out, but it still lays flat, pretty much. And then you can see where I first started, I wasn't being as relaxed. And you can see here, it's a bit wobbly. So that side needs to get a bit pulled out. But yours won't, because you're going to do as I say, not as I did. So that'll still be all right, but just keep an eye on that. You want it to be nice and flat, like that. Okay, good. So now we're done basically with the bag part. It is finished. Can I zoom out even more? So it's all assembled and edge to the top. Try to get it folded somehow in this. So ready to do handles. You can of course make the top as big as you want, but I made my totes, my squares, big enough where I don't need to add much at the top, just for aesthetics, really, make it look finished. So see you later, bag. Now we are making, this is twisted, these fabulous handles. If you know, bleh.